Germany is marking the 31st anniversary of reunification. It was on this day in 1990 that a treaty reuniting the former East and West Germany went into effect following the fall of the Berlin Wall a year earlier. This year's ceremonies are being held in Halle in the eastern state of Saxony-Anhalt, starting with a church service attended by Chancellor Angela Merkel, President Frank-Walter Steinmeier and other dignitaries. After 16 years as Chancellor, this is the last Unity Day event Merkel will attend in her official capacity. In her final Unity Day address as Chancellor, Merkel spoke of the need for diverse and inclusive societies to make democracy work and the challenging path that courageous East Germans took to win their freedom.
The 3rd of October stands for Germany becoming reunited in peace and in freedom. This freedom didn't just fall upon us, it was achieved. The country that we celebrate today as reunified could only become this because there were people in East Germany who risked everything for their rights, their freedom, and to live in a different society. We must never forget that the outcome could have been very different. Those who stood up for their rights at that time and for democracy, they couldn't be certain that the revolution would succeed or that they wouldn't be bitterly punished. And this is true courage.
Well, for more, we're joined by DW political correspondent Benjamin Alvarez-Gruber, who's in Halle for the Unity Day celebrations. Benjamin, Chancellor Merkel already spoke and we heard a little bit there. What else did she have to say?
It was a rather personal speech, and several times she said that she's not speaking as German Chancellor, but rather as a resident of East Germany. She started thanking the people who had the courage to start and to take part in these peaceful revolutions in the East that then led to the fall of Berlin, that then led to the reunification of Germany. So she said that it's important that, as we just heard, democracy needs us as we need democracy. And she also named a few examples. She said that it's important to fight for democracy. She named attacks on the press. She named the far-right attack that took place here in the city of Halle in the state of Saxony-Anhalt, the far-right attack against the synagogue a few years ago, and also another attack where a man shot and killed a 20-year-old at a service station because the man that came into the service station refused to wear a mask. So she spoke a lot about democracy. That's something she's also said in the past years, that this process is not over, and that's also something that the state premier of Saxony-Anhalt said today, that in minds and also in structure, this process of reunification is not done yet.
Well, that's what I wanted to touch on next. More than 30 years on, this reunification process still not finished. Why is that?
We can still see differences when it comes, for example, to ideology, and we saw it at the voting of the last federal election, especially when it comes to the far-right AfD that is pretty strong in the East. It came in first in the states of Saxony and also in Thuringia, where it's being monitored for suspected ties to right-wing extremism. A lot of people feel left behind in the eastern states, and there's still differences when it comes, for example, to pension, when it comes to wages also, and when it comes to economic opportunity. So that's where the party is also trying to get people who still feel as second-class citizens more than 30 years after the reunification.
Well, despite these problems, these ongoing issues, sometimes, Germany is being used as a model often for other conflict zones, such as Korea, for example. Do you think Germany's being a bit too critical on their recent past?
It can serve as a model, but it's important to note here that there are still differences. If we try to compare the situation in Germany and the situation in a possible unified Korea, is that North Korea has been isolated far longer than it was the GDR, so the east part of Germany, before the wall in Berlin fell. But the Minister for Unification of Korea also attended this event in the morning. There was a church service and then afterwards an event here in the city of Halle to see what learnings can be taken out of this process, not only before the fall of the wall, but also what happened since then in the last 31 years. But coming back to what Chancellor Angela Merkel said, is that one of the learnings of this reunification process of the last 31 years is to listen to the experiences that were very different. As for people in the West, life continued. For people in the East that lived under the dictatorship, it was a complete change from one day to another.
All right, DW's political correspondent Benjamin Alvarez-Gruber, thank you very much.
These microalgae could be a significant step forward in the fight against global warming. Marine life absorbs carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and is rich in nutrients. This company in eastern Germany claims to have set up Europe's first algae farm. Founders Jörg Ullmann and Kirsten Knuffmann know nearly everything there is to know about algae. And in fact, the organisms brought the couple together.
Die Idee war hier vielleicht Start-ups anzusiedeln auf unserem Firmengelände.
The plan was to get startups going on our site. Then Kirsten reckoned that her company had grown so quickly that she needed more space for her business. One thing led to another, and so it started with Kirsten moving in. And then we got together. That's how it all began.
Dessen, dass Kirsten hierher gekommen ist mit Firma und eigentlich auch, dass wir zusammengekommen sind. Ja, und das war so der Startpunkt.
The couple now run a successful business, which is by no means a given in Eastern Germany. After reunification, many companies in the former East Germany collapsed.
It's not always the case, but when you run a company you can see that most senior jobs are filled by people from the West. That doesn't bother me, but I think there is a balance to be struck. Reunification swallowed up a lot in the East.
Kirsten's company processes the algae grown on the farm. She works full-time, despite having a 9-month-old baby. Little Siani comes along, but it's the packaging, not the contents, that keep her interested. After work, there's time for the family. Kirsten's mother-in-law is more aware of the gap between East and West in Germany.
It's not really true that people are paid the same for the same work across Germany after reunification. There's also a big difference in pensions, which are not nearly as high here as in the West. A lot more needs to be done.
For many, two old worlds still collide in the new Germany. But for Jörg Ullmann, the fall of the wall was the start of greater things.
Reunification has been great for me. Otherwise, I wouldn't have met my husband or started my business here. I wouldn't have my 2 daughters or my mother-in-law, our happy family life. It was an opportunity, being in the right place at the right time. It brought us together and gave us the chance to build everything. I couldn't have done all this without it. For me, reunification has been a blessing, and I'm thankful for it.
Das ist schon eine Dynamik, die ich nicht missen möchte und wo ich sage, ja, Einheit ist, für mich ist es Freude, es ist Dankbarkeit und alles zusammen.
Today's generation knows only one reunified Germany. The divisions of the past belong to family history.